So do we have the phone call on for people that are calling in? Yes, it's on. It's on? Excellent. I was listening for like. All right. Good evening, everybody. For the record, Thursday, August 13th, 2020, 5:15 p.m., time for the regular meeting of the Wenatchee City Council. As always, we call our meeting to order, and then we start with a pledge to our flag. So, Councilmember Huffaker, you want to lead us from the back?
I'd be honored. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember Huffaker. And for the record, we have all 7 council members with us this evening. Our first item on the agenda today is our consent items, which includes approval of the agenda, vouchers, and the minutes from the previous meeting, and some work performed by Black Forest Finishing on City Project SW 1807.
Your Honor, I make a motion to approve agenda, vouchers, and minutes from previous meetings. Make a motion for the City Council to accept the work performed by the contractor Black Forest Finishing on City Project number SW 18-07 on-call concrete flat work, and further authorize the mayor to sign the final contract voucher.
Second. We have a motion by Councilmember Hornby, a second by Councilmember Kulas to adopt this evening's consent items, including approving the agenda, the vouchers, and the minutes from the previous meetings, and approving the work performed by the contractor Black Forest Finishing on City Project number SW 18-07 on-call concrete flat work, and further authorize the mayor to sign the final contract voucher. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have a couple of action items tonight and one public hearing, and then I have quite a few things on my mayor's report, so just lots going on. So we'll start with bid rejection for the City Hall remodel. So Aaron and Alyssa, come on up.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. My name is Alyssa Webb. I'm the Facilities Manager for Public Works Department. I'm with Aaron Kelly, the Operations Manager. We're here to give you an overview of the bids that came back for the Wenatchee City Hall redevelopment project. As you know, we went to bid back in July, and we went in with a budget of $7.8 million. There were 5 bidders that responded. Upon review of those, the lowest responsible bidder was Cascade Central Construction LLC with a base bid of $11,338,250. There is a technical component that some of the bidders missed on the bid package. If you look at the other low bidders, not necessarily responsible, we were at 9.5 million with sales tax. It's a 17% increase in what we were budgeted. We appear that COVID-19 may have had an effect, and upon further review, we also know that there were some internal components that were over budget, that were over budget. It is our recommendation that City Council reject all the bids we received for the Wenatchee City Hall redevelopment project 1716. We recognize that going out for rebid will have additional cost implications. We are evaluating these options right now. And
So there were a couple of, the Finance Committee talked about this, and I met with staff earlier, I don't know if it was yesterday, I'm losing track of days. So there are a couple of things that were apparent. One was the removal of the marble to put in the windows, and then some of the marble was going to come back in, and the contractors were really nervous about that whole process. So the engineer thought that would cost $200,000. The lowest bid we had was $750,000, and some of them were well in excess of $1 million. So there's some
Just for that piece?
Just for that piece. there's some things we can do around that in terms of adjusting where the windows go and not force them to replace the marble and use something else in the interior. That would get that number back down to something more reasonable. The other thing, there was a bunch of acoustical tiles that were put in there for sound because it's very tall. And I think the ones the architects put in there had fancy wood finishings, and they were, I think that might have been a little bit overdone. And so there's maybe another $300,000 or $400,000 there that can bring the cost down. Both of those things don't get us to a number that's still $2 million off our top number. So at this point, I think what staff is recommending is we reject all of the bids, which I agree with. We've already met a little bit to discuss sort of what might be next in terms of, do you do the exterior stuff and then do just the main floor, leave the mezzanine where it is, get council chambers ready to go, move staff over, maybe some people stay on the top floor, maybe we're sort of looking at different ways. It's going to have to get piecemealed, I think, at this point, and we're just trying to figure out the best way to make that happen. So, but if we do that, that still puts us bidding again sometime in the second quarter of next year. You know, maybe a little bit sooner, but some time period like that. I think what we're finding now, and this is Alyssa talking, not me, is you're finding that labor costs are okay, but there's no materials. So the material costs are off the chart. So what's going to happen is, of course, the material people are going to get caught up, and then the labor is going to go like this, right? And so I don't know if we're going to settle in a spot that's much drastically better, other than I think we need to start thinking about how we might piecemeal this. And I think, not that it's good or bad, but we own a lot of office space, and I think the desire for other entities to rent our office space in light of COVID and in light of people working from home, some of the stuff we have may not be quite as desirable. So maybe we ought to just use it, right? And play the long game. So I think for tonight, I think the proper thing is to reject this. Staff's working hard on trying to come up with different ways. I saw 6 different options or 8 options yesterday. 6. So we're start talking about which ones might make the most sense. So we'll get you guys back involved with it as we start thinking a little bit more holistically about what to do next. Extremely disappointing to get I sat here. I thought you were all going to come to the bid opening. We invited you all. We had cake.
Oh, I missed that invitation.
And no one showed up. And then the numbers were awful. It was sort of like, yeah, wasn't much fun that day. So any questions for Aaron or Alyssa?
Just I guess a comment, Your Honor. Public Works Committee, we looked at this as well, and I understand what appears, I guess, to be the logical thing to do is to, do this in pieces. I guess the only concern I have there is that, I'm not sure we're going to save. The savings I don't think there's any savings in that.
Yeah.
You're going to,
And if it wasn't for COVID.
you have to ramp up
yeah.
to do this section, and then a while back, then you got to ramp up to do the next section and whatever. We're going to end up spending more money.
I absolutely agree with you. And if we didn't have COVID that knocked $1.5 million out of our sales tax, maybe we'd be, hey, maybe just spend some reserves, we can rebuild them over. I mean, there would have been a different way to sort of look at it. But I think it's really hard on any of the stuff we're looking at right now in terms of, we'll talk more about Transportation Council today and NEPA and other stuff. I mean, we're sort of looking to other folks to sort of help us. And this is one where no one else is going to help us but us. And
Yeah, I understand that. I guess just the comment is to, make sure that we take a look.
Yeah.
And
there is
put that into the equation.
Yeah, and there is another option that we really haven't delved deeply about, which would be, where's my finance director? We were very conservative on the use of the utility funds. They could have paid for more. But that also puts a skimp on your utility plans because they're planning for a sewer expansion and water work. And so when you start saying, well, let's grab money there, they have to postpone their work. And we've already done some rate increases there that we're sort of set on. So it really would affect sort of their work product, right? So I think at this point, let's reject the bids. It's something we got to do legally, I think. And then we'll continue to get you guys back in maybe in the next 4 to 6 weeks as we look a little closer. So with all that said, I would entertain a motion if we had one.
Your Honor, I would make a motion requested by staff that we reject all bids received for the Wenatchee City Hall redevelopment project 1716.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Bailey, second by Councilmember Rutherford to reject all Rutherford, geez, Esparza.
I've been called that before. by the
You
way.
have, okay. Councilmember Esparza to reject all bids received for the Wenatchee City Hall redevelopment project 1716. You could be called a lot worse. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, guys. Thanks for your work on this. We'll get to the finish line. All right. Len. How come you always make your motion so long?
Oh, I know. Lots of funding components. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Glenn DeVries, Community Development Director. Before you tonight, we have 2 funding sources with 4 actions that are requested. One is to enter into a new grant agreement between the Department of Commerce and the City of Wenatchee for a low barrier shelter grant. Second is to enter into an amended agreement to increase the funding for the existing CARES Emergency Solutions Grant between the Department of Commerce and the City of Wenatchee. And then subsequently entering into an amended agreement for the existing ESG CV Rapid Rehousing Subgrant Agreement with Community Action Council to increase funding as recommended by the Chelan-Douglas Homeless Housing Task Force. And then last, to enter into the new ESG CV subgrant agreements with Chelan Valley Hope, the Community Action Council, the People's Foundation, and the Women's Resource Center as recommended by the Chelan-Douglas Homeless Housing Task Force. The City of Wenatchee administers the Chelan-Douglas homeless funds and works with the task force as they make decisions, and then the City of Wenatchee is responsible for ultimately the financing component in our budget and cap facility plan. And that's why this is before you this evening. The city is a voting member of the task force as well. Just to briefly, the Low Barrier Shelter Grant is a grant that we've applied for as a region with the jurisdictions and at the request of the task force. This is something that would provide a component of the necessary funds for a low barrier shelter. Not all of the funds. There are a lot of different moving parts that would be necessary in order to make this successful. Partnerships. Other funding sources are definitely required. And there's a task group, a component of the task force and others that are working on this, and there'll be a need for the city to be working on it as well. But this is a significant amount of funds and a process moving forward to look into this further. And it's part of the having a low barrier shelter certainly helps as a gap in our continuum of care for the homeless program that's identified as a desired goal in our Chelan-Douglas homeless plan that we recently amended and adopted as a city and as a region. The second component is the CARES Emergency Solutions Grant. This is very welcome. It's a significant amount of funds, $1,182,946, a significant shot in the arm. This will provide great assistance for the existing gaps that we have in providing rapid rehousing vouchers for people who are looking for housing in our system, as well as funding our emergency shelters for the next 2 years, which were very successful in the winter months. This was a very welcome grant opportunity. So we'd recommend approval of those actions, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to respond to those.
So we talked to the Finance Committee about the initial $642,000 to study a low barrier shelter. We had quite a little discussion about you go out and you study and you find a place to put a shelter in, but you don't have any money to build a shelter, you don't have any money to operate the shelter. That all needs to come from probably the 1/10 two county-wide sales tax increase that the county commissioners haven't, at least at this point, been willing to do. Or if they walk, then you guys get to do it councilmatically if you want it just inside the city limits of the city of Wenatchee and have the disparity even get larger between the other jurisdictions. So I sort of struggled with this a little bit without sort of either a wink wink or some sort of commitment from the counties about either an advisory vote or some way of getting the resources together to operate and build that to study. Again, it's great to study, but then you got to have a plan on how you're going to finance it and how you're going to operate it and do those sorts of things. Now, Glenn's comment was this is a once great opportunity to get at least the first part done. My comment is if we get stuck with the dollars for somehow that the counties agree to reimburse us through the homeless task force stuff so that we're not out of our general fund. And then I need some sort of commitment from them that basically says, yeah, we're willing to look at or at least do an advisory vote to figure out how to pay for some of this stuff. Because at some point, I think you were telling me even a small one's $1.2 million to run.
Yes, correct.
Yeah,
So
just to run it, not to build it, just to run it. Just case managers and people there on site and all the stuff that goes with a low barrier shelter. So I think at the end of the day, he convinced me and I think the finance committee to go ahead and do this, and it gives me some authority to maybe work with the county and figure out how to get this to the where they get some skin in the game.
And the benefits are twofold. If all the parts come together, one, it obviously helps the people in crisis. This is, again, a gap in our continuum of care where people don't have that housing opportunity. But the other component is our downtowns, our parks, our increased ability under some of the court decisions that we can't necessarily enforce some of our local codes to the extent that the city has directed in adopting them because of a lack of a low barrier shelter facility. So this is a dual benefit if this comes to fruition and we're able to get a low barrier shelter in place.
But we've never had money to do this kind of a study before either. So it's like, let's get the study done. And
So is it for a study? Because it says here it's for the design, development, and operation of a regional low barrier.
so Glenn, do you want to explain that to Ruth?
Yeah, so it's, it covers, the grant supposedly covers everything, but there isn't in no way sufficient funds to cover everything. So it gives us money to study it and design it. The problem is the way the grant's set up is if we aren't successful in getting it in place, then we have to pay it back. So as the mayor said, we don't want to start taking from these funds if we get the grant and then have to pay it back if it doesn't happen, which is why we want access to there's a extra fund under the Chelan Douglas Homeless Funds, an emergency fund that we could draw from to pay for staff time on this and pay for, say, a consultant, an architect, something of that nature. So the proposal to the group, and then what we talked about in the task force, is that we would use those funds, city staff would use those funds and make sure that it actually happens. And then what the state said is that if it does happen, then we can pay that fund back. And so on the task force agenda in September will be a specific action item authorizing staff to do that. But it's a key part of this because there are a lot of moving parts. It's a real opportunity, but it's not a guarantee that we can get everything together.
So this might locate different places to build. It could look at current buildings and look at cost to remodel, would find a location, would come up with cost to operate, could do all of those sorts of things, get us far enough along that we would, then if you went to the two counties and got 1/10 from both counties, that's got, I'm just thinking, that's probably gotta be $3 to $4 million a year.
Then
If
accountable,
we're at 10 million, the 1/10's a million from the city, county's gotta be doing more than that. And the other, so $3 or $4 million will bond you, 25 million bucks, and you can go build something, or 20 million, or 18 million, or whatever it is, right? Get something built, have money for operations. I mean, that's the end game. Probably get some state matching money, I'm guessing, or something through commerce, or to help get something at that point. I mean, that seems like the way to get this done.
yeah, you have that, you have the 1406 funds, which the city have adopted, and that's a possibility that you can use. You have the Accountable Communities of Health, which have said that they're interested in helping fund a low barrier shelter for regional. So this gets the ball rolling, and then we've already started meetings with the task force. But this is a key part of it, and there's a schedule associated with it. And the goal would be to have something operational on beginning of 2022.
And I'll go to the task force meeting and let the county commissioners know that if we start forwarding money on this and for some reason we don't get anything, that we fully expect it to be reimbursed through homeless money that they have set aside, or we shouldn't go forward. I mean, it's not our responsibility, it's all the money sits with the county. So really, there's two sets of motions here. The first two dots are basically a budget amendment, and the last four dots are sort of where the money goes. Is that right, Glenn?
Correct.
Any questions for Glenn on this? So I'd be interested in a motion on the budget part.
Your Honor, I move to adopt amendment of the city budget for two funding changes to the Chelan Douglas Homeless Program, a new grant award of $642,636 by the Washington State Department of Commerce to the City of Wenatchee for the design, development, and operation of a regional low-barrier emergency shelter, and a funding increase amendment to the existing CARES Emergency Solutions Grant, ESG-CV, between the Washington State Department of Commerce and the City of Wenatchee.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Harrell and a second by Councilmember Cuevas to adopt two funding changes to the Chelan Douglas Homeless Program, that being a new grant award of $642,636 by the Washington State Department of Commerce to the City of Wenatchee for the design, development, and operation of a regional low-barrier emergency shelter, and a funding increase amendment to the existing CARES Emergency Solutions Grant, ESG-CV, between the Washington State Department of Commerce and the City of Wenatchee. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. And then we'll need a motion to see who gets all the money. It should be those final four dots.
Your Honor, I move to accept staff's recommendation, the City Council accept the Chelan Douglas Homeless Task Force recommendations and authorize the mayor to enter into a new grant agreement between the Department of Commerce and the City of Wenatchee for the Low Barrier Shelter Grant, and enter into an amended agreement to increase the funding for the existing CARES Emergency Solutions Grant, ESG-CV, between the Department of Commerce and the City of Wenatchee, enter into an amended agreement for the existing ESG-CV Rapid Rehousing Subgrant Agreement with the Community Action Council to increase funding as recommended by the Chelan Douglas Homeless Housing Task Force, and enter into new ESG-CV subgrantee agreements with Chelan Valley Hope, the Community Action Council, the People's Foundation, and the Women's Resource Center as recommended by the Chelan Douglas Homeless Housing Task Force.
Motion by Councilmember Harold, second by Councilmember Bailey to accept the Chelan Douglas Homeless Housing Task Force recommendations and authorize the mayor to enter into a new grant agreement between the Department of Commerce and the City of Wenatchee for the Low Barrier Shelter Grant, enter to an amended agreement to increase the funding for the existing CARES Emergency Solution Grant, ESG-CV, between the Department of Commerce and the City of Wenatchee, enter into an amended agreement for the existing ESG-CV Rapid Rehousing Subgrant Agreement with Community Action Council to increase funding as recommended by the Chelan Douglas Homeless Housing Task Force, and enter into a new ESGCV subgrantee agreements with Chelan Valley Hope, the Community Action Council, the People's Foundation, and Women's Resource Center as recommended by the Chelan Douglas Homeless Housing Task Force. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Glenn.
Thank you.
Thanks for reading those, Linda. Wow. All right, so we have one public hearing item tonight regarding a potential agreement, a development agreement between the city of Wenatchee and Sandy and Diana Wheeler. So we will hear from staff. We will then turn it over to any members of the audience who might be on the phone who wish to address the city council on this item, and then back over to the council for any action they may be willing to take. We good? All right, so we'll turn it over to Public Works Director Rob Jammerman.
Good. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll make this brief. It was in your packet. Of course, the staff report, as the Mayor mentioned, this is a two-part. It's a presentation by staff, a public hearing to see if we have any comments, and then an action by the council. So I'll walk through this real quick. We have a proposed short plat known as the Wheeler short plat. The picture up there on the screen is the parcel. It's to the south of Maple Street, about 2 acres, I think, and he's proposing to divide that into 3 lots. The property is directly east of the canal and, as I said, south of Maple. And this is tied to the hip with the proposed Triad development project, which is the orchard there on the left of the screen. You can see that so Maple Street will be extended up into the Triad development. As you may know, we've briefed the council on this project. So if the Triad project goes forward, they will be improving Maple Street. In fact, our city staff is designing that as we speak. And real quick, here's a preliminary layout of his proposed short plat. And you can see there in his short plat, the road meanders onto his property rather than going straight up the Maple Street right away. And this was necessary to avoid tearing down a house on the north side of Maple. And so as we been dealing with Mr. Wheeler and the Tri-Development project over the last few months, I talked to Steve Smith about this, and he said, hey, the best way to memorialize this is with a development agreement. So here, just a few quick bullets on this. So as I mentioned, it's a short plat. It triggers utility and street improvements along Maple. Mr. Wheeler has 235 feet of frontage out there. He has an obligation to participate in a sewer main extension as well as street improvements, including curb, gutter, and sidewalk, and right-of-way dedication. As I said, Maple Street improvements are being designed by the city and will be constructed by Triad Development. So in lieu of having this short plat do it, what's going to happen is Mr. Wheeler will dedicate the right-of-way necessary for the improvements, including the sweep in the road that I showed you. He'll also pay $46,970 towards the improvements, and then he'll be able to move forward with his short plat, and then we'll complete the improvements here actually beginning in October, because Triad Development wants to move forward and put in the new bridge across the canal beginning October 15th when the Reclamation District drains the canal. So real quick, this is just a plan view. I guess west is to the right there, and this shows the sweep in the road. This is being designed by one of our project engineers, and then we'll hand that off to Triad to build that. And so Mr. Wheeler's property is sort of at the top there, and you can see the sweep in the road. So staff recommends that you hold a public hearing and that you adopt Resolution 2020-24, which adopts the development agreement and authorizes the mayor to sign it. Are there any questions?
Has it always been planned to have that little sweep in Maple Street?
No, it wasn't. it came about, during design, when it was realized that the house on the north side of the road, we would have had to tear down the house. And actually, to Mr. Wheeler's credit, he said, hey, I don't want to see my neighbor's house torn down. I'm willing to give more right of way and allow the road to sweep onto my property. And it's not how we would have designed the road, but it actually kind of creates a nice entry into the tri development rather than just running a straight road right in.
And the Triad folks actually tried to purchase the property in question that would have had to go out, and the gentleman wasn't interested in selling it, so then the next best was to go to Mr. Wheeler, and he was very excited to work with us in terms of getting the deal together. So it actually works out good for the Wheelers, works out good for the guy who's not going to lose his house, and works out good for Triad. So
What does that do down Maple Street a little bit further? Because I know that, the Maple right now gets real narrow.
Yeah, we have about 5 additional property owners to the east of Mr. Wheeler that we'll be buying right away from. And so where it is narrow, we are doing right away acquisition out there. In fact, we'll be kicking that off here in September.
So the road would be widened to the south.
The road will be widened in both directions, but more to the north, I think, is there's the road, the actual pavement is shifted more to the south. And, yeah.
I'm just thinking of the rest of the houses up there are all just about in the same position as that house that would have had to been torn down.
Yeah, we've studied that. No other houses will be impacted. We'll be rebuilding some driveways and such, but no structures.
Great. Any other questions for Rob? If not, I would turn it over to any members of the public who are on the phone who would like to address the city council on this public hearing item regarding the development agreement between the city of Wenatchee and the Wheelers. Anybody on the line that would wish to address the council? Hearing no one on the line, I will turn over to the council for any action they may be willing to take.
Your Honor, I make a motion the City Council pass Resolution 2020-24 adopting the development agreement between the City of Wenatchee and the Wheelers and authorize the mayor to sign the agreement.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Hornby and a second by Councilmember Esparza to pass Resolution 2020-24 adopting the development agreement between the City of Wenatchee and the Wheelers and authorize the mayor to sign the agreement. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Rob. Good work on the Wheelers. Good work on the school district. Let's get Triad in there and get going.
Yeah.
You expect them to build a bridge across the canal when the canal goes dry?
Yep, they're in design right now, working with the rec district. Pipkin wants to start construction as soon as they drain the
So will they do the bridge first and the road second, or will the road be designed where they can do it all at once?
They'll start with the bridge first because this right of way that we're getting from Mr. Wheeler allows them to get the new bridge deck up there and then start to shape or grade the road
As we
it
go through the
transitions
process
down.
of
Yeah.
acquiring it right away
Yeah.
and finishing
So,
design
yeah,
work.
so
Okay,
it's a very critical piece in this upcoming subdivision and development agreement that we'll have with Triad.
great. Thanks, Rob.
Yep.
All right, so the mayor's report, I got like 7 items on here. Some are easy, some are hard. So, Linda, did you graduate and get your municipal leadership award thingy?
I guess I did.
Congratulations. A little round of applause for Linda. She made through all of that, so I guess I'm the only one that hasn't complied. I think Jim's got it. I know Mark's had it. Linda's got it. I don't know if anyone else has done it, but anyhow, congratulations, Linda. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Our good friend Randy Lewis, who's been helping us with all the cultural, you've seen him here a couple of times, part of the Colville tribe. He's getting a state award. Laura, help me with it. Yeah, so good for Randy Lewis for doing that, and I wanted you guys to know that. He's been a great help for us, and he's a great guy, so congratulations to our friend Randy. The wastewater treatment plant got another perfect score, so I got that letter in the mail today, although that was for 2019. Apparently may not get one for 2020, but at least we got another perfect score for 2019, so congratulations, Rob, and tell Jessica good job. And, but we got that letter today as well. So just a couple things on the finance side. So good news today, we did the Chelan Douglas Transportation Council allocated another somewhere between $800,000 and $1 million to our McKittrick Street project. So we saw some of the funding shortfalls a week or so ago. We were about $1.7 million short in terms of how all that's supposed to work. So we did get, and it's a little bit complicated. We got the amount that we didn't allocate last funding round, which was $235,000. We got the money turned back from the city of Chelan, which is $265,000. That puts us about $500,000. And then we're getting whatever East Wenatchee doesn't spend. East Wenatchee we gave them money for a double roundabout at 9th and Valley Mall Parkway, and then the highway in Valley Mall Parkway. They were going to do a roundabout and then a roundabout. And apparently roundabouts are no longer in favor of the DOT in that area. So they're just going to do a signalized intersection at 9th and Valley Mall Parkway. So there will be a significant amount of money left over from that project that will come back. Minimum will be $300,000. The max will be $500,000. So, so I've been working hard with the members of that commission to make sure that that allocation happened. It's a bit unusual in sort of midstream to get an allocation like that. So I'm very thankful to that group for getting us some money to help with McKittrick Street. And as you do know, may have known, the port did allocate $175,000 to our environmental studies regarding Confluence Parkway. So that meeting took place on Tuesday. So that part went very well. We'll be in front of the link board, Jim, next week. Request for $350,000. And then still working with the PUD on sort of their role and responsibilities there. So wanted you to know that. And as you probably know, we've had some discussions with the jail. They've asked for almost 100% increase in jail costs. So we have a letter going out to them this week. And we'll follow up with you in a week or so about how that's going, but we've got a letter going out to them. So Community Action Council, Linda, you can't attend meetings anymore?
No, I have a conflict with it. So Jim has graciously agreed to
In a
take my
permanent
place.
basis or on a temporary basis?
Well, I spoke with her yesterday.
Okay. Did anybody care that you did or didn't have voting rights?
No, never mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what?
Should we memorialize Mr. Bailey's,
Well, I don't, that was the question I had. Do we need to have formal?
We did when I stepped in for.
I think we should have a motion to appoint Jim Bailey to the Community Action Council Board in replacement of Linda Harold. That's what I would do.
Do you want me to make a motion?
Yeah.
Your Honor.
You should make a motion to get yourself off a board as quickly as you can, shouldn't you?
I know. Your Honor, I move that we appoint Councilmember Jim Bailey as our representative to the Chelan Douglas Community Action Council.
Second.
So we have a motion by Councilmember Harold and a second by Councilmember Hornby to appoint Jim Bailey to the Chelan Douglas County Community Action Council Board. Any discussion?
Thanks, Jim.
Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Jim. Now that just ratifies the fact that you voted to spend a bunch of money yesterday. Yeah.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks for doing that. All right, so a couple of things that you guys have been getting some emails about that we probably should discuss. And I'll discuss these in no particular order. So we've had a few emails and some discussions with a family in actually my neighborhood of all things regarding our bee ordinance and the fact that we have a bee ordinance that allows a number of hives and certain setbacks from fences and those sorts of things. Our code enforcement folks have been called out a couple of times, and I think Glenn will tell you that the family who's got the beehives they're done in accordance with our current regulations. So I don't believe we have a code issue with them. So the issue would be, are you interested in turning that over to the Planning Commission to spend some time on? The other one that you probably got during the week or last week was regarding I'll use the term pygmy goats. Sorry, I apologize if they're called something else. But we do have an ordinance on the number of small farm animals based on the number of square footage in your lot. And apparently a neighbor has requested that we look into, again, someone that may have too many of those sorts of animals. And they would like us to look at that code as well. So in both of those instances, that would go to your planning commission, and they would spend some time doing some research, some public outreach, and come back to us with either a recommendation to do nothing or to change our codes. I know the planning commission, Councilmember Hornby was nice enough to say, I thought they're dealing with the noise ordinance, and do they have enough to do? So I'll leave that up to the council to make those sorts of decisions. And you've gotten emails and you've gotten all the stuff that I've gotten, so I'm not going to comment any more than, at some point, we need to either give direction to the planning commission or not.
I guess I start all these with the thought of, is there a problem? Or what is the problem that we're trying to solve? Is there a problem? You know, how many registered bee keepers do we have, for example? 21.
So Glenn, would you do me a favor? Would you mind just coming up to the microphone and if you're comfortable, dropping your mask or getting something in there close so our folks at home can hear that?
Yeah, sorry.
That's right.
Yes, so we have 21 registered bee hive owners, and of those, in the last 5 years, we've received the one complaint, and that complaint, in review of the site multiple times, they were in compliance with that site. The adjacent owners actually submitted correspondence saying how much they appreciate the hive and the manner in which they take care of it.
But there are other neighbors in the area that don't have the same feeling.
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
just to be fair.
yeah.
And then our laws on pygmy goats or
Pygmy goats,
help
so
me with that a little bit.
Small farm animals.
Well, whatever
So
the
they-
term is.
our code doesn't consider them a small farm animal, it considers them a larger. And, you know, whether it's pygmy or dwarf, they're about 50 to 75 pounds. I think the planning commission, when they looked at this previously, they considered, for example, take a lot in the historic district, 6,000 square foot lot. If a pygmy or dwarf goat of 50 to 75 pounds is considered a small farm animal, then you can end up with, similar to chickens or rabbits, you could end up with 4 of those on that 6,000 square foot lot. You know, we're one of the most dense jurisdictions in eastern Washington, very similar to Spokane when you look at densities. And the planning commission at that time was concerned about that type of density with that size of farm animal and the odor impacts. We've also had some issues over the time in the city over some people like to slaughter those animals for eating. So, you know, that code was something that the planning commission at that time didn't want to make less restrictive. So right now it's treated as a large farm animal, so you'd have to have, as a starting point, 20,000 square foot lot, a half acre, and it's based on 10,000 square feet per animal, so you'd have to have, on a 20,000 square foot lot, you could have 2 goats.
When was that looked at? Last
In
looked at?
2013,
Thank you.
And our B code roughly the same time?
2015.
Okay, so 13 for the small farm animals and 15 for the B code. Okay.
Correct.
And the number of complaints that we've had for or against.
The bees, we've just had the one. And I'm sorry, I don't have, since I've been here in the last 7 years, I think this is the only concern on goats that I've heard of.
And as I recall, we did make some allowances when we annexed in areas of the city that already had horses on the property. We made some allowances there.
We do have a provision for large farm animals, and, you know, as far as new ones, and then certainly if it's something that we annex, we look at, existing non-conforming uses as they come in and being able to continue to do those uses certainly as they're annexed, absolutely.
Okay, so there's, yeah, I think the minimum half-acre lot, which is 22,000 square feet, which would then allow 2 of those sorts of farm animals on site. That helps me with the math to try to figure out. And if you treat them like a dog or a cat, for instance, then that allows them in the smaller zones, which,
And it seems like the county actually had similar rules that we were looking at, if I remember right, as far as the lot size that was needed to,
yeah,
they were very similar to our code.
yeah, there was a time when we were pretty close, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I can't recall. I think East Wenatchee is a little bit less restrictive. They also have larger lot sizes, and again, it's a community choice.
Yeah. Like they don't have an area as dense as, say, our Grandview Historic District or some of our other
Correct.
areas, or very much of them.
I believe one of the emails, though, was asking for an exception due to having them be considered like FFA
Right.
animals. And apparently other cities have these exceptions for FFA animals.
So I guess we, again, an FFA animal could be a cow, could be a pig, right? So it's more about the size of the animal, I'm thinking.
Well, size and type, because
Yeah,
Yeah.
some animals emit more odor than others,
yes.
like male goats.
I suppose we could ask staff to look into what other cities are doing if there's an exception. I mean, I don't know how you would enforce something like that, but yeah.
It is tough. I mean, it's all over the board, quite frankly, as far as what jurisdictions do on this.
I don't know, I sometimes get a little weary of something doesn't fit me, therefore I want everything to change in the city. And we recently adopted the housing code, and apparently it's not good enough already. So, whether it's the small animals, I mean, if the stuff's working,
Yeah.
we have a planning commission who's working on the update of the shoreline master program, working on the college district, both extremely critical
Yeah,
projects,
noise code?
the noise code, implementing the housing code. The others, and where would they find the time
Yeah.
to do something that we did, 5 years ago?
Which in government is like yesterday.
And 7
Yeah.
years ago?
Yeah.
I guess, and I'm not poo-pooing the notion of doing it. I'm just asking, as a former resource manager, where's the time and the money come from?
Yeah.
How many yeses are we going to give?
Yeah.
I have to agree that they've got enough on their plate right now. It's something that needs to wait.
Okay.
If we look at it at all, it can't be.
I'm fine. I'm fine just leaving it. I know that you all got the email, so I just thought it was important that we at least bring it up here to have that discussion, so. So at this point, the direction from the council is to leave things as it is and maybe revisit stuff sometime next year if we can continue to get issues or if the planning commission finds some time on their schedule. I think it's important to get the noise ordinance done and the shoreline master plan and changes to the housing ordinance too, so.
I think it's important that we're not saying that they can't have them. It's just the number of them, I think, is the concern. So
Yeah.
There is some wiggle room there, and we have been willing to let animals of different types be in the city limits. So it's not like a total no.
Right.
I think one of the more fun moments after we did the small animal code was being called by then another council member, and who wasn't really keen on chickens populating residential neighborhoods, and called me up to report that he just saw a coyote chasing a chicken in one of the neighborhoods close by here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you let your chicken out.
Okay, I think that accomplishes all of the stuff I had on my list. Laura, was there something else on my list? Your list and my list were the same? Tammy, do you have a problem? Yeah, how long is that? Yeah, show that. So we got a video from our friends in Masawa who are sad they're not coming this year. And it arrived in my mailbox and I asked Tammy to look at it and she looked at it and she hasn't shown it to me yet. So I guess we're gonna look at it.
Nice.
Is there gonna be volume?
アメリカはそういう中にあって、情報とかからは、ウェナッチバレーの皆さん、こんにちは。日本以上にアメリカは厳しい、そういう中にあって、情報とかからは、この三沢家を続かう素晴らしい動画をいただき、選手受けられました。心から感謝をいたします。またこのコロナを終わった暁には、いつも通り楽しい交流を続けたいと思います。どうか皆様には元気にしてください。Hello everyone in Wenatchee. I go to school in Test every day. I'm looking forward to the day to be able to see you guys after having gone over this week of week. Let's do our best each other. Thank you. ウィナッチバレーの皆さん、こんにちは。今度、大会できるまで、動物の次のように、手を長くして、待っていきたいと思います。大会までさようなら、頑張りましょう。ウィナッチバレーの皆さん、こんにちは。皆様、お帰りに、この病気で、そのおかげに、お願いします。私も何とか元気にやっております。前の人のエッセンがそれでいいとするような状況になるので、絶対に負けずにしております。お待ちしております。できる限りのことをしたいと思います。Hello friends in the Wenatchee Valley. My name is also Mira and thank you. During the difficult times that we're all facing, and you're doing our best to stay home. But you know, as we say, it's better safe than sorry. So hopefully we will see you all next time next year. Happy Smile, hug, and hope that everybody is there and stays healthy. Sending smiles, Happy Smile. Goodbye. プリムラのスエです。上町の皆さん。昨年の会でお世話になりました。今年は皆さんとお会いできないんですけれども、その分、来年に向けて楽しみなのが増えて、それまた嬉しいことです。隣の旦那です。はい。元気にまた、来てください。非常に楽しみにしております。Yeah. Hello, and konnichiwa. We pray that all of you are staying safe and healthy during this challenging time. Having a Jesus be like you helps us keep our spirits up. We really hope we will be able to visit each other once again next year. Thank you all. See you next summer. Oh my friend. Wenatchee. Thank you for your message to us in South. It's very inspiring to watch with people flying over the valley. We're going to work on our 40th anniversary for Sister City program next year in 2021. I hope to see you in person next year. Thank you. Hello, I'm Wakana Kikawa. Thank you for warning about us. We cannot go over because of COVID-19, but I enjoy looking at pictures of freaking birds. I'm looking forward to visit you again. See you.
Oh.
Makes you want to go back, doesn't it, Linda?
I'm going. And my granddaughter's going for the third time.
Oh, good.
That's nice.
Nice.
Yeah, so I'm guessing Mayor Crawford sent them something during the pandemic and that was their response. So thanks for showing that, Tammy. All right.
And we perhaps might think of doing one ourselves here.
Yeah.
One thing, and I need to extend this to him personally, Chief Crown and East Wenatchee Police Chief Johnson were guests of Wenatchee Rotary in our weekly Zoom session last Thursday. It was a wonderful session. Both chiefs the Chief Crown really represents us well and is a really grounded approach, and I think Chief Johnson's a good selection there too. They both made wonderful presentations and were very well received by the, whatever it is, 24 or 36 of us that do the Zoom meetings.
Yeah.
It's nice of them to take their time to do that.
They're both really good guys.
Yeah.
Anything else, council members, on other committees, other stuff that's going on?
Yes, at the Homeless Task Force this week, we talked about, it's House Bill 1506, is that the number, Glenn? Oh, 1590, that's it. Anyway, you already mentioned it about the sales tax.
Yeah.
We would be to pass it back to see if there's any interest in doing that. I'm not saying I'm in favor of it, I'm just passing a message on, or is requested to pass on.
Okay.
And also, our homework assignment was to take a look at the area within our jurisdiction for possible sites for
Low barrier shelter?
Low barrier shelter. And if you have any ideas, either send them to me or send them to Glenn.
Okay.
So we'd appreciate it. Or to Frank, or to His Honor.
Your Honor, it was yesterday or the day before, got a email of a petition.
So that was the farm animal petition.
Well, that was the front of, yeah.
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
from all over the galaxy signed
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
What the deal was on that.
Yeah, that was the farm animal petition.
Galaxy, I like
You can do them online now, apparently, and then people can sign in from everywhere. All right, anything else for the good of the order? We'll have a work session next week, and I don't know what the topics are, but we'll find out when we show up next week. All right, thanks, everybody. We're adjourned.